Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. After a week off, we all kind of had some stuff going on. I think you two had stuff going on, and I was just like, well, 2 against 1, gotta cancel. And now Dom has something going on today, unfortunately, so he will not be joining us, most likely not be joining us. I would downgrade him to doubtful if this were a football game. But we are here, gruesome twosome, coming at you, Sleepless with Steve, myself, Steve Pulaski, and of course the inimitable Joe Viso. He's inimitable because without him, I don't know how to run this show. I don't know what I'm doing. So I am friends. One of my great philosophies in life: surround yourself with people more intelligent than yourself. And Joe and I became friends, and that's the origin story there. I just noticed, too, I look like, man, I'm an Illinois boy through and through, but I got my Pelicans bracelet on, and I got a Pelicans shirt on right now.
Dude, I thought I was Pelicans. I'm like, he's either wearing some, Egyptian Beetle shirt, or that's the Pelican.
No, it's a Pelican symbol, man. This is my Brandon Ingram jersey, man. I've been aboard the Pelicans hype train for the last, 2 years, ever since they got Zion.
I was like, legit, it's either that or the Journey, album cover with that beetle on the front.
That's a good guess. No, this is the Pelicans shirt. Me and my buddy are trying to go to the game when they face. My buddy likes the Bucks. We're trying to go to the game when the Pelicans come to Milwaukee at the end of January. We're trying to go to that just so I could be the only person in Deer County, Deer Park, whatever they call it, Deer District. That's what they call it. So I could be the only person in Deer District wearing this and maybe get a beer thrown at me. Pelicans are my team though, because I'd rather put faith in them than the Bulls. But moreover, we are live and in living color every Wednesday evening, usually 6:30, a little bit early. We're all over the goddamn place today. Yeah. We're all over the place like space today, but moreover, show must go on, and we are talking 2 movies today. I would say short and sweet, but it's more like keeping it simple. We've got 2 movies on the docket today to talk about, one of which is the Ty West movie Pearl, which has been out for now about 2 weeks, I believe. We're talking that, so looking forward to diving into that. That's the prequel to X that came out earlier this year, back in March. That was one of our first reviews back because we took a couple weeks off for me to move.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we came back.
It was the Batman and then X. It was 2 really good movies back to back.
Those are the first 2 movies I saw out here in Iowa. There you go. The first 2 movies I saw out here were Batman. Batman was the first. Actually, I take that back. It was the 3rd movie. I saw Dog, the Channing Tatum movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which nobody remembers anymore. That came and went like a fart in the wind. Nobody talks about that, and that was a pretty good movie too. But yeah, there is that. And then we are talking about The Munsters, which should be a gay old time. We both watched that last night. And you know what? I'm happy at the same time. I'm relieved at the same time. I'm kind of mad because we made this a whole thing. We didn't really talk too much about it on air. We made this a whole thing of having to go to Redbox because, and I'll talk more about this when we talk about the damn movie, but the release pattern for this Munsters movie has been all over the friggin' place. Because am I nuts? Because not only initially it was supposed to go to Peacock. Remember that? Supposed to go to Peacock. Then it was going to Netflix. And then they frigging said that it was going to be on DVD and Blu-ray on September 27th. And then it was going to be on Netflix on October 6th. Am I nuts? It was not going to be a DVD streaming bundle. It was going, but then all of a sudden it's on Netflix yesterday. You sent me that.
Well, even when they announced the movie, it was oh, Rob Zombie's The Munsters. It's it will be coming out this, and then nowadays, whenever you say something's coming on a date, you also want to say to theaters or to whatever the thousands of streaming services we have now. So it was weird seeing it's coming in September. And that was it. I was where though? Is it theaters? And then, yeah, no, you were right. Peacock, Netflix, DVD, and we were so where the fuck is it going to be now?
Yeah. This rollout was a mess. This rollout was a mess, and I wonder if it's because they're not used to high. They had to spend a decent marketing budget on this thing, at least more relative to Universal 1440. And the only thing I could think of is that like Universal 1440 does not do a lot of high profile releases.
Yeah.
And this was probably the most anticipated, which isn't saying much, but it's one of the most anticipated that they've ever done. Like I love Tremors, but the Tremors sequels outside of these niche groups didn't have this kind of buzz. Obviously the Million Jarhead and Death Race sequels didn't have this kind of a buzz. So it's like, I almost wonder if like, they just weren't prepared to like really launch this thing, because it's like all of a sudden like all eyes are on this subdivision that they give projects 500 grand and say go do something with this. Go make Cop and a Half 2 or Kindergarten Cop 2. Go count. We got here's $1 million, 750,000 of it's going to Larry the Cable Guy. Make Jingle All the Way to you friggin' idiots.
Hey, you can make it work. Pay that guy $10 just to say 2 lines. Go.
Pretty much. But so clearly we have a lot to say about the Munsters, which makes me upset that Dom isn't joining us for this one. But you know what? He suffered through both of these movies too, and he doesn't even get to talk about them. Like Chelsea's pissed at us.
I know. I was like, man, this is the horror movie duo right here. Like you and I talk about horror movies all day. We made Dom sit through a horror movie, and then I don't want to say what the Munsters is just but that's another horror film practically. But again, like, yeah, he had to sit through.
Yeah, he got screwed, man. Chelsea is not going to be a happy camper when she sees us again.
How the hell are you making him watch all these fucking movies?
We had to sleep with the lights on for a month.
Thank God we didn't make him go see Barbarian.
Oh God, I almost wish if Dom and I weren't so close, I would have told him, dude, Barbarian, like it's pretty light horror movie. There's nothing too weird about it. You'll be good. Should have been PG-13. It really could have been. But anyway, so we'll dive into Pearl right here on Sleepless with Steve. We will talk about this movie again. Ty West's retro slasher movie that I think I compared to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Debbie Does Dallas. Mm-hmm. And you're a nice, scrupulous human being. I believe you've only seen one of those movies. But anyway,
checks out.
Ty West X. That was earlier this year. Like, I think I kind of have to give a recap of that movie. I mean, I think if you've seen Pearl, you've seen X, but like X was set in the 70s and it followed a bunch of these indie filmmakers that were going out in Texas. They rented this cabin from an elderly couple named Pearl and Howard. And they rented this cabin and they were insidious about their motivations. They wanted to shoot a pornographic movie starring a woman named Maxine, played by Mia Goth, without the couple knowing. But once the cameras started rolling, the body count started piling up. And the killer was Pearl, also played by Mia Goth in the movie X. And she's an elderly, frail woman. Excellent job of Mia Goth playing dual roles over here.
Yeah.
Well, now this is the prequel, and this prequel was teased at the very end of the end credits of X. It was assumed that we were going to get it this year, and lo and behold, we did. Ty West shot these back to back during the pandemic.
This is like, I love when we get cool releases like these of either sequel to sequel within the same year or prequel to sequel, or prequel to original, I should say, in this case. Because like we don't get this too often anymore, and I think it's really cool to like be still in this universe within that same year where everything's still fresh in your mind and whatnot. I just love that.
I do too. The only thing better than a sequel following a year later is a slight, like Halloween ends in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Is a sequel that follows the same year, and you don't get it often
or within
it's hard
a year.
To do. Or within a year,
yeah.
It's hard to do because of the fact that it's got to be a back-to-back shoot, and that's rigorous for a lot of these actors. You know what's another type of sequel I really love, and I can only think of really one. I probably could think of more if I didn't put myself on the spot here. I don't even know what they're called. I would almost call them in-universe sequels. The only example I could think of is Get Smart and Bruce and Lloyd Out of Control. It's a movie where, like, help me out here. Like, it focuses on two other characters that are doing their own ventures while the main movie is occurring, and then they'll intersect. Get Smart did that very well with Anne Hathaway and Steve Carell. The Bruce and Lloyd movie, Bruce and Lloyd Out of Control, had all the same scenes of like anytime. It was the same chronology, the same timeline. I guess you could say shared timeline sequels of like, what are these characters doing while these characters are doing? Well, you saw these characters doing that. This is what these characters are doing. I love those type of movies, and those are even harder to do.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of the other example. Though.
I literally I can't. I mean that is like the only one that like I couldn't even think of one. And when you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that actually does work. I guess like in some ways, no, I was gonna say Star Wars Rogue One, but like no, that actually just goes right into Episode 4. Like that's literally all I could think of. You don't really see it too typically with blockbusters. You more see it with smaller movies or comedy stuff like that. Which is probably why we saw it with something with Pearl, where they actually do something like, hey, here's a prequel to the same movie like that you saw earlier this year.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like I just looked on Wikipedia what they call
Lion King 1.5. There we go.
Lion King 1.5. That's another.
I'm like,
one.
there is one out there that like a lot of people know.
And I was just thinking, like, you know what they call this? They call it a side spinoff on Wikipedia. The Bruce and Lloyd movie. They call it a side spinoff.
Side spinoff. Okay.
And you know what? And I remember this because you know what happened? The original the Get Smart movie in 2008 was a very big hit. That grossed like $230 million. The DVD of Bruce and Lloyd came out a week and a half later. And I'm like, that was pretty cool. I remember that in like middle school thinking like, man, I never saw that done before.
I think one of the Annabelle movies too, like it takes place during one of the Conjuring movies, but it's back at their home. And these are the events that are going on back at their home.
Yeah, and we got on a way too big of a tangent. Thanks to me.
I know.
Jeepers Creepers 3 ends with the beginning of the second movie.
Oh.
Jeepers Creepers, it's been out long enough, I feel like I can spoil it.
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers 3 ends with the beginning of the second movie.
Yeah.
And the continuity timeline is a little screwed on that one. Like, because it doesn't that's the twist at the end. You see the school bus from the second movie about to go to the football game. And then Jeepers Creepers 2 revolves around the bus coming back from the football game. And it doesn't, in the moment you're like, holy crap. And then you're walking out of the theater, going to the bathroom at the end. You're like, well, shit, well, that didn't make any sense. One of those. But anyway, though, Pearl rewinds from X about 60 years. It goes back to 1918, I think exactly 60 years after the events of X. So we're at the tail end of World War I. You can tell Ty West wrote this during the pandemic because the Spanish flu is a decent subplot of this whole thing, or at least the background of this whole thing. But this is the origin story of Pearl, played by Mia Goth, the elderly woman in X. She has an overbearing mother played by Tandy Wright, who's very good. She's got this barely breathing corpse of a human of her father, this wheelchair-bound man played by Matthew Sunderland. And she's stuck in this like monotonous life of chores and catering to her father and dealing with her overbearing, domineering mother. And she wants to be a dancer, and it seems like there's an opportunity to be a dancer when the church choir or the church troupe is looking for a set of dancers.
Yeah.
She also befriends a projectionist at a local movie theater played by David Cornsweet, and she befriends him a little bit, and he believes in her talents and whatnot. But for the most part of everything, Goth is mostly on screen this whole entire movie. This is her movie. She's playing one role so she can focus on this role. And it's also very much Pearl's unsubtle descent into madness and desperation that drives this movie for about an hour and 40 minutes. I've been talking way too much, Joe. Your general impressions of Pearl.
When we reviewed X, I kind of said like I did enjoy it. I just kind of wish there was more time, I think, with some of these characters and everything, and they kind of developed some stuff a bit more. But overall, I thought Ty West did a really good job with the movie, and I had a great fun time. It was a very I love the 70s look and everything. I now want to go back and watch X again because I really enjoyed Pearl a ton. I think I might like it more than X. And I'm not trying to I'm not really trying to compare the two films. It's just I really do think X might have actually helped me like this film even more because it made me appreciate what Ty West did here. And I was even texting Steve about it. Ty West goes from that 70s horror slasher thing that we always saw back then, with a Friday the 13th or whatever, at that era of horror with kind of the look of X, and also you had the porn industry backdrop going on there. Excuse me, I just choked. and you and you have the same thing here with like Golden Age Hollywood. What a terrible time for this to happen.
Live.
Okay, there we go. You have the same thing here with like kind of like that Golden Age Hollywood of farm girls, Wizard of Oz, dancing, singing, animals, all that stuff. And I think just seeing the two styles within the same universe be done both so incredibly well was really cool to see. But not only that, because it mainly just focuses on Pearl, and it allows Mia Goth, who did help write this as well, to just really get into this character. I was like, oh, dude, I'm absolutely loving this. Because to me, I mean, I enjoyed her performance in X as both Pearl and Maxine. But I was like, I kind of wanted to see more of her. I'm like, she was really good. I would love to see more of her. And it's like, literally, this whole project is like, it's led by her, man. This is her movie, like Steve was saying. I mean, it really is. There's some other, great performances in here, like her mother, what's her name? Tandy Wright. I thought she was she was really good, like when she was working alongside her and everything. But it is mostly just Pearl's movie. It really doesn't, as Steve was saying, it doesn't really cut to anybody else. She's on screen at all times, and Mia Goth just kills it, man. I mean, like, I know we don't get like the typical like horror movie like Oscar nominations, and I'm not saying like this is one of them, but like I really wish like there was like the horror movie awards for performances, because I feel like Mia Goth deserves at least something, like, because she put her all into this, man.
You are getting some light Oscar buzz from Mia Goth. I think it's
seriously?
Yeah, there's some light ones. I've seen a couple outlets publish like, could she? Should she? Like, put feelers out there. I would like to see it. I truly would. I mean, I think it's one of the most noteworthy performances of the year, twice over. I wonder, like, it's tough. I think I don't think they would pull. I don't think the Academy would get tricky and be like, Mia Goth nominated for Pearl and X. I think it would just be Pearl. Yeah.
If I had to pick one, I would just pick Pearl.
I would too. No, absolutely. Because that's really her showcase, even though, because in X she was more Maxine than she was Pearl.
And there's plenty of other people like Jenna Ortega and everybody else was on screen, kind of, especially what's her name from Pitch Perfect. I thought she was the one that stole the show for me in X.
Brittany Snow.
I absolutely loved her in that movie.
She was great. Scott McCuddy.
Kid Cudi, yeah.
Kid Cudi. Yeah, all the performances in X were surprisingly very effective, and you don't say that too much about horror movies.
True.
I am not confident Goth will get an Oscar nomination. I'm more confident in Cooper Rife getting a writing nomination, but I still wouldn't bet. If that was a DraftKings bet, I wouldn't bet on it. So I'm not that confident, but I'd like to see it. But either way, she's done a hell of a job, man. I mean, this has really been a great year for her with these two showcase standout performances, and she just has that that horror girl look to her. She's unique, and the thing is, I love unique looking people. Like people that don't look like, or people that don't look like movie stars, people that look like somebody on the street, like somebody that you meet. Like, that's why, I know you're not big into country music, but that's why I love Luke Combs so much. Luke Combs looks like an average dude. He looks like the neighbor that loans you his wheelbarrow. We need more regular people representation in this country. We really do. It's like another country singer, Hardy, looks the same way. Looks like a frat dude and makes great music. I was telling my boss, ugly dude representation. This is what we need. But Mia Goth, she is really a force. She acts with her eyes a lot, and you see it a lot in Pearl. She acts with her eyes. Yeah. Especially the end credits. The end credits of her, that frozen or that shot of her with the credits rolling as her smile rapidly fades. Yeah. I mean, it's an unnerving shot. And even when the camera is fixated on her, like when she kills a goose or something like that with a pitchfork. Oh man. Like, there's some hard hitting scenes in this movie.
There is, yeah. I was telling people too, because I told some of my friends I went to go see it, and they were they completely forgot it was coming out. Like, because this kind of just like, it kind of came out again during the worst time for any movie to come out during this box office run. But out of the movies, I think that like came out during this drought, I think this has been my favorite one. But I was telling them, like, in all honesty, too, I'm like, X was more of a horror film. It had more of, like, a slasher feel to it. This, I kind of feel, was more of a drama. Like, I mean, there is horror moments to it. Don't get me wrong. We have some really gruesome kills and stuff. But because of her performance, I was like, damn, I'm really invested in this story.
This is very much like, and again, there's not, the older I get, the more I realize, and shocker, the world's more complex. But like a lot of movies these days, and it's cool, a lot of movies have multiple genres in them.
Yeah.
And even like hint flavors of other genres. If I had to call this anything, I don't even want to say it's a thriller. And that's one of my complaints that I'll dive into in a little bit. I would say it's almost like it's like a psychological horror drama.
That is perfect.
What it is. That's what it is. Because there's a lot of dramatic moments in this thing. This movie is slow burn in the way that it lets this narrative build and really gets you invested in a lived-in quality of Pearl's life.
It reminds me, I'm not saying Ty West copied this at all, but it reminds me of Ari Aster's both films, Hereditary and Midsommar, where it's like, those are horror films, but there's a lot more to them if you want to really splice up the genre here. And I feel like Ty West must have like seen those movies and was like, damn, what if I made a trilogy where I just played around with genres and styles of filmmaking? And like so far, I mean, 2 out of 3. I mean, I can't wait for Maxine. But he's like done such a good job. And to me, it's like this one's better than the last, and I'm hoping the same with Maxine.
X was the first movie Ty West made in like, I want to say like 6 years
or 7, yeah.
And he did some television work. I know he did a Tales from the Loop episode and such. I've liked Ty West a lot. And Ty West first came on my radar back in 2009 when Cabin Fever, Spring Fever came out. And he was famously vocal about how pissed off he was about that movie. Because
9 years, by the way, 9 years it's been since he's made a movie. The Sacrament came out in 2013.
But he also did a Western. It was called In a Valley of Violence.
Never mind. 2016.
Yeah, he did In a Valley. A lot of people, that was a Netflix movie, In a Valley of Violence. But I remember when Cabin Fever 2 came out, which is not a good movie. That movie ran out of money. That movie ran out of money so fast and so rapidly. The last 3 minutes of that movie are as flash animation. I'm not even shitting.
Oh, shit, really?
The last 3 minutes of Cabin Fever 2 is flash animation. They ran out of money, and Ty West was pissed. And Ty West wanted Alan Smithy to be the credited director on that. He wanted his name erased from the whole movie. And he was vocal about it. And he tanked that marketing campaign. It was a direct-to-DVD thing. He tanked that marketing campaign because he wouldn't shut up and say, that's not my movie. That's not my movie. And he taught, and I thought at the time, this guy is going to kill his own career before it even gets off the ground. And it was the total opposite. He did House of the Devil. He did The Innkeepers. He did Sacrament, which I think is really underrated. He's made a lot of really good horror movies alongside Joe Swanberg, Chicago native Joe Swanberg, I should say. Dude, Ty West is awesome. I was stoked when I heard this thing was coming out, when I heard X was coming out, followed by Pearl. And here's another thing I'll mention too, just making this whole monologue worthwhile in some respect. The thing about Ty West, and I think this is why he's not a household name, he was also worked a little bit earlier before, obviously, Jordan Peele, Ari Aster came on the scene, Robert Eggers even too. Ty West is not, and this sounds like a negative, but I'm not negative on this. I think it's a fact. Ty West has never been the kind of horror filmmaker who wanted to dive into really heavy themes or political messaging. He never was that. And I don't think he'll ever be. He just wants to make classically good, sort of throwback 70s style horror movies. And there's nothing wrong with that. The reason I bring it up in the first place, as Zoom inexplicably limits our time, the noteworthy part about Pearl that I found really cool was that he does recognize in the movie very subtly, but thematically, that the entertainment industry of the time, because Pearl's trying to become a dancer. And she sees the pornographic stag film from The Projectionist. She kind of learns in that moment, the entertainment industry publicly denounces sexual content, like the Hays Code back in the day, but then sets women up for that to be their living. Yeah. And he hints at that, and he gets into that, and it gives Pearl just a little bit more meaning and edge to it.
I agree. I think, again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do more of that classic horror stuff. I know today, like, Mr. Peel and everybody else, that's been like the new thing, and like I haven't seen Don't Worry, Darling, so don't spoil it for me. Despite like people telling me that ending is whack as hell. But like a lot now today, horror has become kind of that whole like Twilight Zone type horror. There's a lot of horror films that are doing that, unless if you have like some legacy to you, like Halloween or Scream. A lot of horror movies are coming out, and they're just like, oh well, like let's relate it to something of today. The Saw movies did that, and I'm sure the newest one that will be coming out, was it later this year or next year, will be doing it too. It is cool though, like to get this every now and then, where it's something classic like this, but even get to like what Ty West does, like, hey, here's actually like something I'm gonna throw in here, and that was a good observation on your part. I was so in love with just the performances going on, I didn't even notice that.
Indeed. A lot to like about this movie too. We got a little bit of time here, so I might as well dive into my one criticism here. I think I had very high expectations for this movie, probably a little too high coming off of X. I think this movie is brought down, and you free to disagree, Joe. Free to disagree.
Are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say? This begins with the letter P.
In some ways, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's brought down by its slow burn pacing in this particular way. It's not the fact that the story moves slow. That's not a problem, because it makes the first kill, which comes later than you probably think, it makes it have
hits harder.
But it's the way the structure and the pacing of the movie is so heavily telegraphed. And I struggled to find the word until I was writing the review of what I was trying to say. But for us big horror movie fans, it's very easy for us to tell where scenes are going.
Yeah.
Because they spend like an upwards of 5, sometimes even 10 minutes, all but outlining the direction of where the scene is going to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like these medium length scenes that are set in one location where the tension starts amassing, but it's not like a pot boiler where like your blood pressure, you can feel your blood pressure rise. It's just this very tense, almost real-time conversational pacing, and then it starts, then something happens, and then it explodes, and you're like, I saw that outcome coming.
So
that's where I think is that it does a lot of disservice to the suspense of this movie.
I absolutely agree, because this movie reminds me, and I'm going to use this film just because it's probably the most popular film I can think of that very similar, Joker from 2019. Not necessarily a prequel to any of the Batman films, but you can look at it as that, like, it's just, oh, this is like a prequel to Joker becoming the Joker, the origin story to him, whatever you want to say. Both films to me have this unfortunate thing of, we know where this is going to go eventually. We know Pearl's going to descend into madness because we've seen X, and we know how she is in X, and we know how psychotic she is in X, and and how like much bloodshed happens in that movie. And we know where the Joker's gonna go, because, well, we've seen The Dark Knight, we've seen Tim Burton, we've seen Suicide Squad, we've seen all these things with him in all those medias, Lego Batman. That there are so many scenes, it's like, I know where this is gonna go. And the main scene I wanted to point in Joker, and you even bringing up like the first kill and everything, of how telegraphed we know where it's gonna go eventually, is when Joker goes on Murray's show in that movie. And it's like, he's going to shoot Robert De Niro in the face. Spoiler if you haven't seen Joker, I'm sorry. But I was like, the immediate time, like, the moment we found out, like, he was going to go on that show, it was like, he's going to shoot him in the face. Like, that's what's going to happen. He's going to kill Murray live on air. And there were moments like that in Pearl, and that is actually my only criticism as well. I really can't think of anything else, because it did make me kind of just, like, feel, for a short movie, though, it made me feel its length. And I hate saying that about any movie that's under 2 hours, because it's like, I appreciate any film that is willing to come on in, tell its story, and get the hell out. But unfortunately, there's even times where it's just like, you're telling your story, but like, I know where this story's going, and like, typically I don't let it bother me, but this scene is going on forever. It is like, let's just get to the point, hit the points of the conversation I need to hear. And it sucks saying that. Because everything else about this movie I think is very well done, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's where I thought Pearl was lacking a little bit, just because, like you said, for a movie that is what 90, I want to say,
Like an
100,
hour and 45 or something.
102 minutes, probably about 98 with those credits, 97 for those credits.
Yeah.
It made me feel its length a little bit, because a lot of it is slowly paced, and I think that the slow pacing does a disservice to the it becomes very telegraphed where this movie is going to go.
And pacing with movies nowadays, this has just become like something I've just paid attention to longer. And I don't know if it's this. I'm starting to do I'm conducting a study on myself. I'm not going to AMC till I know when Nicole Kidman's going to appear on screen, because I feel like AMC has so many damn ads. You have the trailers, you have the concession stand ad, you have you're watching in this format ad, whether you go see IMAX, Dolby, or just regular. Thank you for choosing AMC. Please sign up for A-List. You get like one last concession ad of a Coca-Cola bottle getting filled up, and then Nicole Kidman comes on, and then the movie starts. So it's like I try to like limit myself. I usually love watching the trailers, but now I'm like getting up and like walking around the theater, going to get like something to eat, purposely getting to the theater 10 minutes late. Because it's just
same.
Like,
that's what I've started. I've been doing that for years now.
It's like, I'm wondering, I'm like, is it the pacing, or is it because I know I've been in this theater for like an extra 25 to 30 minutes because of AMC?
No, it's true. You're absolutely right. That is a factor. And I'm a person that just avoids trailers. And you got to remember, too, I go to the movie more than you do. Yeah. I go to the movie more than Dom does. So, like, I always tell people, I say, I get if you go to the movie once a month or once every 6 months, hell yeah, you want to get there as early as possible. For me, though, I go 3 times in a weekend. I've seen these trailers enough times. The amount of times I've seen the trailer for Don't Worry, Darling probably adds up to the length of the goddamn movie. Like, so I wind up, if a movie starts at 4, I get there at like 4:10.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to see all that shit. But that's the thing too. And then what I wind up doing is then I shut my phone off like right as Nicole Kidman is talking.
Okay.
So I know like the time it starts. So I know the time it starts then, and then I can
look at my watch. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Like Roger Ebert with a glow in the dark watch. He had one of those. But we will come back. We'll take a short break right now. We'll come back in about 60 to 90 seconds, finish up our discussion on Pearl, and then try to make heads or tails, flat tops or vampires, whatever you want to call it, of the Munsters. Brand new Rob Zombie movie. And I hate talking bad about my boy Rob Zombie, but we're going to have to dig into this one. But we will dive into that coming up very soon. We're going to take our Zoom-sponsored intermission, be back shortly with Sleepless with Steve. We are back, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube every Wednesday evening. Usually at this time is when we start, but things got a little jumbled tonight. Dom is MIA, unfortunately. We made the boy suffer through 2 horror movies, and he's not even going to reap the rewards of his suffering. But we will, and we will talk about X. I'm surprised that we went this long. We were just talking about like the pacing, how it bothered us.
Pearl. We'll be talking about Pearl.
Pearl. Excuse me. Excuse me. We were talking about Ty West Pearl. Just talking about how the pacing bothered us a little bit. Here's the other thing that Pearl does, though, that I really like and I really enjoyed. And you got this vibe from the teaser trailer. And I thought the trailers for this movie were really well done.
They were really well done, yeah.
Really well done. I don't think I even ever saw the X trailer. I just read about it. I don't think I ever saw that trailer now that I think about it.
It's a well done trailer as well. It wasn't as good as this though. This really played with its style.
That's the word I was going to use. This movie really pays homage to like the bygone era of Hollywood. Choreographed dancers, technicolor landscapes, cute farm girls singing in front of cutesy animals and humping scarecrows. That era. It's almost like a demented Disney movie.
Yeah.
In some ways too, with some of these scenes. And that's what delighted me about this, because I love when good directors like Ty West, I love when they merge styles and they can make like a pastiche of this, and then just like splatter it with blood and make it gory and make it dark and make it macabre. Like I love that. I'm a twisted man, and I love seeing that. It's so satisfying. And the style of this movie, like technicolor wise, presentation wise, very, very, very well done, well played.
I agree. Do we know where Maxine is taking place? Is it 90s?
I want to say it's going to be like assuming that X picks up and follows Maxine, it would presumably follow Maxine after the conclusion of X.
Yeah.
You would think, which then you're going to be what I got the impression of from the teaser trailer. If people don't know, there's a teaser trailer after Pearl. The third movie, Maxine, is coming.
Yeah.
You know what I think? It's going to wind up being the 80s porn scene.
Okay, all right.
That's the vibe I got from it, because Maxine, the character, is trying to be a porn actress. The Farmer's Daughter movie in X was her debut. She's the only surviving member. She's going to go off in a career right as like the golden age of porn is like kind of winding down, which was like in the mid 80s. And that was the vibe I got, because you had this VHS aesthetic of the Maxine.
Of the Maxine sign, yeah.
Which is in production now. That movie hasn't been filmed. That's why that teaser trailer is so modest.
Yeah.
Pearl was already shot when they made the trailer. Maxine, it's just the title card.
Yeah.
It's just what's essentially a title card.
Yeah.
But that's what I think. You got the 1910s with Pearl, you got the late 70s with X, and you're going to have the early 80s with Maxine. That's my best guess.
This has the potential of being like probably like among horror groups, just like a great trilogy to like talk about. It's like, oh man, have you seen Ty West's like, I don't know, like X anthology? I mean, X trilogy, like
X trilogy is probably what it's going to be wound up being known as. Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think these movies are good enough to be canon, as the snobs say. I don't think these movies are canonical enough, but I think this is shaping up to be a damn good horror trilogy.
Hell yeah.
I think it is, and I think it's going to get Ty West even more commercial appeal. Even though these movies, they're performing modestly. These are modestly made movies that are performing pretty modestly.
Yeah.
But they are very well reviewed. They have a following, and the studio obviously trusted Ty West enough to release both of them in the same year.
Hey man, A24 is always just like, all right, when it comes to just releasing stuff.
Hell yeah, and that's the cool thing though. Like I'm happy these movies exist.
Yeah,
and I'd watch more of them. I'm not begging for more, but I'm ready for Maxine, which we'll probably get. I want to say we'll probably get. And this is just my best guess. My guess is we're probably going to wind up getting. We're probably going to wind up getting Maxine. Probably, I want to say maybe fall or summer of next year.
Probably, yeah.
That's my guess, because it's in production now. So I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves on when I think it's going to happen.
Do we know like anything else other than like time period wise? Do we know like obviously it follows Maxine, but is it going to be like another like slasher type movie?
We don't know. I mean, we don't even know the time period. Truthfully, the only thing that we know is that. Oh yeah, we actually do know the time period. I take that back. Your boy was right. Just learned this now. 1985.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
So it's going to be a few years after X.
Okay.
It's going to be a few years after X. Plot was confirmed to center around Maxine, the only survivor of the massacre of X, as she continues to pursue her future in Hollywood.
Okay.
Your boy got it right, man. There's a porn element in this thing too, because it's Maxine with 3 X's.
Yeah.
There's a porn element in this. I'm smart. I can read between the lines. Mia Goth is also an executive producer of it as well.
Is Kid Cudi also producing again?
I believe so.
Cool.
I believe so. Yeah, there's that though. There's that on Maxine.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to it, and that's I wouldn't mind a couple more of them. I truly wouldn't. And I think Ty West is really going to come with his A game with Maxine come next year because he did with X and he did with Pearl. I would put X above Pearl. That's just me personally. I don't think the masses agree with me there. That's how I feel. 3 out of 4 stars for Pearl, though. I did enjoy it quite a bit.
This one's above X for me. But I can see it going either way with people. I know the masses have said Pearl is better, but I'm also like, okay, well, give it time, and people will like probably flip flop on that again. That's what people do nowadays. For me, I'm really stuck between 3 and 3.5 because that pacing does like kind of kill it for me. For now, I'm gonna say 3.5 because I really enjoyed this and I really loved the style that Ty West really brought to it and the energy here that everybody, including Mia Goth, had. Especially Mia Goth had is what I meant to say. So yes, it is 3.5 out of 4 stars for me.
That's our review of Pearl, Ty West brand new prequel. Check it out, still in theaters. This is where I would review Jeepers Creepers Reborn, but I don't think there's really any purpose to review it because it's out of theaters now. And let me just tell you just really briefly. Oh, that thing sucked. That thing sucked. Like, that's a movie I've gone on to really hate more. The more I've thought, I only gave it 2 stars. I think I'm going to go back and give it 1.5. Truthfully.
Oh.
And you know what's funny? I just looked at it. And here's the thing. You cannot accuse this of being review bombed with the Victor Salva taint because Victor Salva has no involvement in this. This thing's got a 2.9 out of 10 on IMDb.
Wow. Jesus.
A 0 on Rotten Tomatoes, too. It's not good. Jeepers Creepers Reborn. It is not good. I was telling a friend, and again, I'm not reviewing it now formally, but like I was telling a friend, I said, I have never been, for a Fathom event, this theater was like a damn funeral. And there was like 24 people in there, I think I counted. There was 24 people to see this on a Monday night. And I said, this thing was dead. Everybody just got up and left at the credits. Everybody just got up and left. It was dead. There was no clapping, no cheering, nothing. I mean, it was pitiful. It was almost shockingly pitiful.
That's sad to hear.
Big time. And then the best part was in the beginning of it. I can't pronounce his name. Timo, the guy who made Iron Sky, directed this. So if that's a ringing endorsement, but he comes on the movie. I swear to God, I've never seen this happen before. He comes on the screen to intro the movie, like how they do at these Fathom events. And the director's like, "Thank you for coming to see my movie. We worked hard. The cast loves it." He basically admitted in so many words that COVID really botched the production of this thing. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is really how you're going to start this? Saying that like, oh, we had to work around a lot of things in lieu of COVID-19, and some things didn't turn out as we planned. I'm like, oh, well, this isn't good. I'm like, well, this isn't good. You might want to have just left that in a thought bubble, sir. But anyway, let's talk about the Munsters. I have more to talk about with the Munsters anyway. Man, is this thing a mess? And man, has this thing been weird? We talked about the trailer of this movie. When it dropped, how could you not? Everybody was talking about the trailer. Rob Zombie's a household name. And I go back to 2 points I made in my trailer, or our trailer assessment of this thing. 2 points that I will quickly bring up here. Number one, when this was announced, I was not expecting this to go to theaters. I wasn't. I was not expecting this to go to theaters because I've said this before. Rob Zombie has not been commercial in over 10 years.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie has not been a commercial director in over 10 years. The last big thing I think he made that went to theaters, and it was limited release too at that, was probably The Lords of Salem in 2012.
Yeah.
That was probably the last thing that he made that went commercial. 31 and 3 from Hell, those were both one-night only movie events. The last big commercial release he had was Halloween 2, which was not a well-received movie at all. So much so that he was going to make Halloween 3D, and then they canceled it. He never got his Halloween 3. That was really when his commercial appeal started to tank. Now, I've always liked Rob Zombie. I've always been a Rob Zombie supporter. I remember being shocked by some people's hatred for Rob Zombie movies. I've always liked the guy. He's also, I bring this up all the time, he's one of the only metal artists I really enjoy. I think the guy is uber talented. I love his passion for horror. I love his passion for movies. It comes through in his music. I have a lot of respect for Rob Zombie. He's one of a handful of even musicians I'd love to see live. I think he's got a hell of an energy and a gorgeous wife too. But the Munsters now, the other point I'll bring up is, and I brought this up during the trailer assessment, Had I known that the studio behind such illustrious productions as Benchwarmers 2 Breaking Balls, Jingle All the Way 2, Woody Woodpecker, Death Race, and Jarhead sequels was going to be behind the Munsters, I would have never bothered getting excited for it in the first place.
Yeah.
Because if I'd have known this was going to be Universal 1440 Entertainment, which is Universal Studios direct-to-video / streaming offshoot for a lot of sequels that they produce to keep the rights in play, to show that they're doing something with the properties, I wouldn't even bothered having any expectations for this thing at all. Not the best thing, but one of the silver linings I can admit about this movie, and I don't know, I did not spoil and look at your Letterboxd write-up if you made one. I didn't. I haven't.
I didn't do it. I did it today for this. I haven't even done mine for Pearl yet because I just was so busy the week I saw. I was out of town last week, for anybody wondering why we didn't do Sleepless last week.
Yes.
But I did manage to see Pearl while out of town.
Yeah, and I appreciate the commitment.
Yeah.
The Munsters, though, like, one of the silver linings, and I always hate saying this because I sound smug, but I'm really like, after that trailer, this is kind of a sigh of relief. This isn't god awful.
No, it's not.
It's not god awful. We're not talking Woody Woodpecker level of Drek over here. This is at least watchable. It's a watchable, silly, kind of stupid movie at the end of the day.
Oh, we have a special guest here. Hold on.
Oh,
15 minutes left of the show, and here he is. The man, the myth, the legend. The man in the blue polo. Dominic Guanzon.
Gang.
All right. I've actually been listening, and
I
just want to say I agree with everything about Pearl. 3 out of 4 stars. The score was amazing and used very ironically.
Well, we are going to Sleepless OT, evidently, and you have just come in at the very end of my thoughts, my general thoughts on the Munsters. I will pass it to Joe, and then we'll go to you, Dominic. Good to have you on.
That trailer, man, that trailer was something. That trailer, like, it had audio, like, cutting out. It had just weird edits and weird cuts. And the movie isn't like that, thank God. But it's still not good. It's not god awful. I've seen people say this is the worst movie they've seen this year. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm like, dude, it wasn't that bad. Like, I did text the group chat last night, like, oh, fuck this movie, because, like, it got to a point where it's like, all right, let's wrap this up, because, like, literally, I will say, like, my biggest thing I hate about this movie is that it just goes on and on and on and on and on with scenes to where even the ending just kind of just goes, that's it, we're done. It's like, oh, okay, now we're done. When we got to the point that everybody knows the Munsters.
Oh, when I saw 109 minutes, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, this is a movie that should have been a law that this thing couldn't have been longer than 90 minutes.
This thing could have been an hour long. But no, man, I mean, it's not as bad as people were making it out to be, but this is a bad movie, man. Like, there's no getting around it, because, like, I will say this, the best thing about this movie for me was the sets and just the energy everybody brought with them. Everybody is committed to this movie. I just really wish the movie was committed to them, because the movie's doing them no favors. The script, their costumes, the extras, the music, nothing is helping them. But, like, everybody in this movie, I even thought, like, I don't think Sherry Moon is that good of an actress, and I didn't think she was that good here either. But she wasn't, like, god-awful or anything. She, like, you know, I think her sharing screen time with Herman Munster and even the Count as well. I was like, whenever she's sharing screen time with them, she's doing fine. She's holding her own in the scenes and everything. But, damn, I mean, like, there's just long periods of just where I'm not laughing. Like, I'm not laughing. I think the first time I laughed came in at the 25-minute mark, where they made it, like, they said the phrase "born yesterday," and if, you know, Herman Munster goes, I mean, I was, though. Like, and I thought, like, okay, that was actually genuinely funny, and I think I didn't laugh for, like, another hour after that. I was just kind of sitting there waiting for this to end.
I hear that. Dominic, you have said the fewest words ever on an episode of Sleepless in which you were present. So you have the floor right now.
2020 Scoob is a movie that has my utter contempt. Just complete and utter hatred for something that isn't quite as malicious as God's Not Dead, but it's still a really, really bad movie. A movie so bad, I genuinely thought the three of us in an experiment could have written a better screenplay, and I was prepared to do it live, but I know we weren't quite there yet. Anyway, I know that didn't quite pan out.
If we were trust fund kids, it would have been a perfect thing to do.
Oh, great. However, the Munsters isn't actually that bad as Scoob. It's bad. It's not good, and it is bad. But I actually low-key kind of respect it because they perfectly captured 1960s humor, sitcom humor, 1960s sitcom humor.
Yeah.
It is scary accurate. The only thing it was missing was a laugh track. In fact, I actually think this movie, I don't know if you mentioned this already, this movie, if they put in a laugh track, I actually think it would have been significantly better.
I said that in my review. I said the only thing that I kept waiting for a laugh track, and I thought like it might have worked.
I don't know if it would have ever worked, but I thought it would, it would have worked better. Everything I'm going to say is this is not good, but it would have been better. It would have been better.
Man, just commit the whole way. All right, like WandaVision committed the whole way.
Here's the thing. You know what?
Same.
I agree, Joe. You encapsulated perfectly in that everyone gave, like all the actors and the set, all the technicians gave 110% in this movie. Yeah. Actors and tech did great. Makeup, oh wonderful. Set design, oh dude, holy shit. For a Universal, what's the name of the studio?
1440.
For that kind of budget, oh dude, you were hitting it out of the park.
He did a lot with a little, Zombie in the crew. He did a lot with a little.
It's got, I haven't seen Clerks 3, but it has that energy that I thought the cast of Clerks 3, the characters of Clerks 3 would have put in their fictional movie. But anyway, yeah, dude, it really just comes down to the failure. Who wrote this? Zombie?
Yeah. Zombie, yeah.
He just completely failed in that department. So, and it's hard to say if is this like a George Lucas situation where it's like, you should have not directed or written. But in any case, I don't know how that, if that's even a fair parallel. But yeah, dude, what gets me is that an hour and 15 minutes into this movie, it becomes, it's like the first hour and 15 was a prequel to the start of the movie that started when they arrived in America.
Yeah.
That was the real issue. The first hour and 15 minutes could have easily been
30 minutes.
No, it could have been like 5 minutes. And then you start the real I'm not joking. You could have started the real movie because the actual interesting part wasn't Transylvania, to me at least, wasn't Transylvania and that very weird world. The actual interesting part to me was the contrast. It's the conceit of the actual show, I think.
Yeah.
The original show, which is
suburbia,
exactly. Where it's that all these hideous, monstrous, creepy family, they find repulsive, 1960s America. Suburban lily white America, dude. And now that I even say it out loud, you could have played with that some more with what we know about.
But you know what that tells you, though. You know what that ultimately tells you. And I don't mean to cut you off. You know what that ultimately tells you, because like you said, the first hour in like 15-20 minutes is all. It goes from Transylvania to America, and then they're like adjusting to this, then they get evicted. Like an hour and 20, they get evicted. They have to move to. They have to go to. They have to go to
California.
Mockingbird Lane. Yeah. Mockingbird Lane, where the show was set. And I remember thinking okay, finally, after an hour and 20 minutes, this thing finally has something of a plot. And then I press my Roku remote, and I'm like, there's 20 goddamn minutes left of this thing. I'm now here's my point. Here's my ultimate point. This is a prequel to the Munsters show. The actual interesting part is when they move to Mockingbird Lane, which is where the show started, which tells you there was no reason to go backwards in the first place because it was a mess. It doesn't matter where the hell they came from in the beginning because the show got it right. And I don't give the Munsters a lot of credit. I thought the Munsters sucked as a kid. I never watched it. The Munsters wasn't a good show, man. There's a reason the Addams Family is the canonical spooky family.
That's what I heard.
The Munsters sucked. I don't care what and I'm somebody who was a lonely only child and watched MeTV hours as a kid. The Munsters suck. Take it from me.
Yeah, dude. If they had spliced it down and like I'm not saying Rob Zombie would have ever done this. Maybe I'm not too familiar with his work. If he would have ever, was he ever a subversive director? Would you say in his writing?
I don't know about writing. He was just always a very graphic writer and visualist. Like he was somebody who,
Sure,
like demented ideas were his best feature.
okay.
And it goes back to his Halloween movie of the first 20 minutes as Michael Myers' tormented childhood. And it's like, that's where he shines, is like bringing this very grungy, dirty, gory vision to life. He's a visionary. I think he's a visionary filmmaker in a lot of ways.
So it really is a George Lucas parallel where it's like, you did great you are great at crafting this world and you have an incredible vision. You just don't know how to actually execute on this idea properly or make it palatable in any kind of, wide sense. And other people have to step in here, but regardless, there's actually a lot of potential for this movie. Could it have ever been that? No, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, it's directed and written by Rob Zombie. But there's actually a scary bit of potential, given how much craft was put into a lot of the makeup and set design and acting. Honestly, dude, the Geico caveman who plays Herman Munster did amazing here.
Yeah.
Given the very horrible lines that he was given and lack of any kind of jokes.
The cast is all good.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniel Phillips, I thought.
As Herman Munster?
As Herman Munster. I mean, you're going up against Fred Gwynne over here, who was a legendary actor at the time, sitcom actor. I thought Jeff Daniel Phillips was outstanding as Herman Munster.
And the other,
I'm not going to... Go on.
I was going to say, the other thing, too, is that, they didn't try to imitate the original people. Like, they did their own thing with it, at least. Like, I could commend them for that. Like, they were
faithful, though, in a lot of like the original cast is what you're saying.
Yeah, like
they're faithful to the characters without trying to emulate the people who played the original characters. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do impressions in that sense, because it just sounded genuine, which either means the impressions were 100% spot on, or they were doing their own thing. And it's good to know that it was the latter, and they were smart enough to make that choice, the actors. But yeah, dude, it's like, you could have been subversive. You could have been all up in American suburbia. Steve, I actually did read your review. Apparently there is a movie that did a similar reboot of a long forgotten franchise that no one cared about, called the
The Banana Splits movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but that just sounds interesting, where it's
that's a good movie.
The show
it's
ends,
not a
and
great
then they want to like murder people. Like, what?
That's what it is. The whole movie, and I swear I brought this up before. I probably have. The Banana Splits movie is based on the Banana Splits Adventure Hour, which was, and Dom will love me for saying this, which was a crappy throwaway Hanna-Barbera cartoon in the 60s. It was a variety show bargain bin cartoon.
Every other Hanna-Barbera work past Tom and Jerry.
Facts. What they did was, again, the Banana Splits have almost no relevance in the modern day. I would say the Munsters are a little bit more remembered.
Just for that theme song?
Not by a large mile. Not by a large
just
margin.
For not Fall Out Boy? Uma Thurman.
Yeah, it's Fall Out Boy, yeah.
Yeah. The Banana Splits movie, though, was a horror movie. And that's why I'm like stupidly excited for this Winnie the Pooh horror movie that's coming out. I know you guys have seen this thing. That's why I'm stoked for Blood and Honey, because it's like the Munsters. And this is why I think everybody is so like 1-star worst movie ever for Rob Zombie, is because from the moment this was announced, almost all of us collectively wanted an R-rated Devil's Rejects-esque take on the Munsters. That's what we wanted. Nobody was wanting a faithful reboot of a crappy 60s sitcom, which most people can remember character names. They can't tell you episodes, unlike the Addams Family. That's what I think. I would have rather had Herman and Lily murder people for an hour and a half. I would have wanted that, and I'm not the only one. That's why I think this movie was almost doomed to fail, was not because you were going to make a faithful adaptation of the Munsters. It's because you were Rob Zombie making a faithful adaptation of the goddamn Munsters. We know what you can do.
Yeah, that's so true. If it was, I didn't even need it to be extremely dark. I just need it to be subversive. It doesn't even have to be that deep. Just like, hey, what if we kept the same campy style? but then when they enter America, they like inadvertently murder people, and then there's a laugh track when they like. What if they
That would've been
Pearl
genius.
style
Oh my God.
stab a person, like stab a dude in his car with a pitchfork, and then like a laugh track plays, and then like
Or there's,
Herman
like, those-
Munster turns around and it's like, well, and then it's like, what if you did that? Just do something with it.
Or even like, because there's so many kitschy sound effects which I swear to God are probably lifted from the actual show. There's so many kitschy sound effects in this. It would be great if they're like, if like Herman Munster like wielded an axe and sliced somebody and you just hear like this cartoon like thud. Like I think that could have worked. I think you could have had a best of both worlds amalgamation here. I think it would have been a lot more interesting than what is ultimately a messy movie that is just a bunch of side gags at the end of the day.
It
That reminds me
felt
of a Saturday Night Live sketch where they where it's like a prank show, but then it's like hey, you film me doing this prank, and then they have like a dude with a soundboard doing wacky sound effects, but then they go on to this one dude and he like murders someone on camera, but then the soundboard dude just keeps on pressing the sound effects, and I'm like, no, someone has died, but they keep doing it, and that was just so funny. But sorry, Joe, what were you gonna say?
No, this reminded me of Disney Channel or Nickelodeon original movies that came out on Halloween that were not based on any IP, and they were just gonna try and start like their own live action show, but they did a movie to launch the show with it. Like, just quality wise in terms of the jokes and everything, it reminded me so much of that. I was like, and I could totally see kids being like, oh, I love the Munsters movie. I used to watch that every Halloween, like 15 years from now. Like, they probably grew up with this thing on Netflix. They probably put it on every Halloween because it is so family friendly. But god damn it, Steve is right. I mean, when this was announced, I was like, holy shit, dude, I can't wait to see this, like, like dark take on like a classic horror family thing. Granted, that is not the movie I was promised. That is not the movie I was shown through trailers. I was shown a much worse movie through trailers, and I still went in with an open mind, hoping that this would turn out to be just good, maybe just a different take from Rob Zombie, to see a different side of him. But then when you see the end result, you're just like, dude, honestly, like, I'm not saying you didn't try, but like, I knew you would have gave more effort. I'm not saying you didn't give any here, because I know he loves the Munsters, but I know you would have given more and put down more if you did your own style with this.
If anything, he loved it too much.
Yeah.
But I will say
That's what it was.
Joe, I'll dispute you on saying that this is going to be something that might be played every Halloween for fun. I don't know, man. Like, some like
That's a reach.
Those movies work because they are good movies, in my opinion, or at least have some good value. And then like it's a movie that you can sit down and enjoy on some level.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Christmas Story.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I have never watched it from beginning to end. It's always somewhere in the middle, and then I just watch the rest of it. Kind of like The Godfather whenever it's on well, I don't think, on TV is not a thing anymore. It's all on streaming, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas the Munsters, it's so milquetoast, and it's a style of humor that time, like evolution, forgot. Like, if we have evolved out of this, guys, we don't need to recreate it. This is the one time you were too faithful, and no one enjoyed it.
And the best examples of that style of humor have gone on to be, I'll use this word again, canonical. Like I Love Lucy, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, The Addams Family. We have picked the best of that era, and we have put it on the 60s, 70s Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
I guess there's two respective Mount Rushmores for the two respective decades, but you get what I'm saying.
Right,
the Munsters time has forgotten. I'm sure there's dedicated Munsters message boards and wikis out there, I'm sure. But the Munsters has very little relevance in the modern day. I said that in my review at stevepulaski.com. I said nobody was groveling for a Munsters reboot. If there were, we would have heard time and time again, like it would have been like Rob Zombie's planning to direct the Munsters. We would have been like, oh, well, this is like the third director. They're really trying to get this off the ground, aren't they? That's not the case here. This was a passion project that I am, at the end of the day, glad that Zombie did get to see made. And I'm happy for a lot of the production designers who worked their ass off on this thing.
Yeah.
That's indisputable. I just wish too, but even as the movie marched on and I grew more and more restless, I was just thinking, by like 45 minutes to this thing, I'm like, for as good as this whole movie looks, they're not doing a lot with these backgrounds.
No.
Like, it's good ambiance. They're not doing anything though. Like, they built all this stuff on Universal's like 2-block long backlot over here, but they really didn't do much with it. And then but I will say, as a lover of dad jokes, 1 in every 5 kind of made me chuckle. 1 in every 6 kind of made me chuckle. My favorite one, and it wasn't even that it was funny, it was just the way it was delivered, is when Herman Munster comes over for dinner with Lily at the Count's house at her place, and the Count, who I kind of like some of the banter between the Count and Herman Munster because they both don't like each other. I did laugh at some of that, but I did like when the Count goes, when he's talking about Herman, he goes, I think it's my favorite line of the movie is when he says, "Flat Top fancies himself as a comedian." I did get a laugh out of that. That was kind of funny.
Another joke from the Count that made me I actually got a good laugh out of me because I just thought it was so true about movies and TV shows and stuff that do this. But it's when he slams the spell book down and he goes, "The spell book in which you want to spell but don't know the spell," and he reads the whole title. And I was like, all right, that was actually genuinely funny.
But you were too afraid to ask.
The
core trio is good. Shout out Daniel Roebuck as the Count.
Yeah.
For real, Daniel Roebuck, I was like, damn, did they take this guy from the show and time machine him into because the delivery is perfect. I love that style of delivery. I don't know what you call it, where if it's like angry New Yorker, angry old Jewish man. I don't know.
Was what I was thinking.
You know what I'm talking about? That delivery, even
if
the joke sucked, the delivery was spot on.
Yeah.
Really, shout out to this cast. They were giving it their
That's
all.
what it is. And like you said, the line flat top fancies himself as a comedian on its surface isn't funny. It's the delivery. It's the inflection, it's the tone that makes it that really makes it click.
And what if the jokes were good? Like, damn it. It could have been great.
Seriously. That's about all I gotta say. I will say though, with the Munsters, the only thing worse than a bad or a mediocre movie is a bad or a mediocre movie that I don't have a lot to say about. And I did emerge with a lot of thoughts on this because I think that this, for as boring as it could be, it's not uninteresting. It's not an uninteresting movie. And I'm happy that Zombie, just because I'm such a lover of Zombies movies and music, I'm happy he did get to make it. But man, oh man, this is a missed opportunity, I think, in a lot of different ways. As good as some elements of this thing were, it really is kind of a mess, and it does overwhelmingly, I think, overstay its welcome. It's 2 out of 4 stars. It's not an unmitigated disaster. And I said in the beginning, I don't like saying that because it sounds snobbish. It sounds like I'm being smug. But after that trailer, man, I mean, it was looking bleak as hell for this movie. So this movie, the fact that it's mediocre, it almost feels like that's 3 stars on the purpose or on the money right here. So 2 out of 4 for Munsters. We'll go Dom and then Joe to send us home.
Yeah, dude, 1.5 out of 4 stars. As someone who gave Jurassic, what's even the
Dominion.
latest Jurassic World
Dominion.
something? I don't even know, dude. I gave that 1 star. I will give this a 0.5 star over Jurassic Park out of respect. I will say, 2s, 2.5s, 3s. They're kind of nebulous sometimes on how I'm feeling. I respect my 0.5 and 1 star reviews, like your God's Not Deads and your your Scoobs and your Jurassic Parks. Those I treat myself with respect. And the Munsters is not close to those, because yes, some great technical stuff going. I mean, not like landmark or like innovative, but just the craft. I can appreciate it. Let me say that. And cast is great. And missed opportunity is a kind of a backhanded compliment, but it's one that is probably on par with this movie. Joe.
I'm with Steve. I'm gonna say I'm with Dom on this one and just say a whole completely different rating. For me, it's 2 out of 4. I don't blame Dom though, or anybody giving this a lower rating. People who say it's the worst thing they've seen this year, that to me is like, okay, hold on. But if like
that's like saying Showgirls is like the worst movie ever made, right? It's like, come on, get out of here.
Like, but I totally get if people are like, no, this is like probably my least. Like, I did not like this movie. I hate this movie. I totally get if people say that. I totally get it. But it's 2 out of 4 for me. I wish I saw the movie I saw in my head, and I will say it again. I didn't have that movie in my head when I was watching it, but by the time the credits hit and I sat there and I really thought about everything I just saw, I said, yeah, there's no way the other option would have been worse. Like, it would have been it could have been as good or better, hopefully. 2 out of 4 stars for me.
And that's our show. Very happy that Dom got to join us. Better late than never, as I like to say. Next week we are tackling "Don't Worry, Darling," which I'm interested for your guys' take on this thing, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie, to say the least. So looking forward to your thoughts on "Don't Worry, Darling." That'll be next Wednesday, normal time, 6:30 on Sleepless with Steve. 2 reviews, no waiting. Tackled Pearl, tackled the Munsters. And it was a good show. Next week is "Don't Worry, Darling." Don't forget that. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.